completely impressed by Richard's diligent and in-depth research, along with his ability to concisely identify the most important facets in each of the cases reviewed in this book. One of the biggest challenges for detectives is how and when to cull unimportant information. There is no better example of this than in 1983, when Henry Lee Lucas duped dozens of detectives and Texas Rangers into believing he had committed over 500 murders. Many of these cases were cleared based on his impossible testimonies, allowing to this day the true murderers to go uninvestigated. Richard's methodology in Family, Friends, and Neighbors illustrates how to avoid meandering down all the possible rabbit trails and instead stick to an investigative path forged by vetted witness testimony, pertinent physical evidence, and specific corroborating circumstances. Much like the good conclusion of an exhaustive investigation, each of Richard's chapters could easily be adapted into a grand jury presentation for a motion of indictment. When Richard approached me to write this foreword, I was utterly thrilled. My wife Lynn and I have read many of his books. I consider it a privilege not only to support his research but to highly recommend it. In addition to exposing many intriguing cases, this book takes you on a journey of discovery, meshing the investigative facts with the anecdotal legends, many of which law enforcement has failed to prove or disprove. Most people understand that cold cases always remain open to additional discovery, such as another witness located, a deathbed confession from the killer, or the missing body and crime scene being located. What many people don't consider is that even with closed cases and formally adjudicated cases, there may be additional things to discover. There may be more evidence obtained many years later, new witnesses identified or additional suspects implicated. In some instances, this new information completely changes the case's conclusion. Who knows? After this book, you might even see through the veil of time and make discoveries and contemplate ideas the detectives never considered. Introduction. As a writer of true crime books, I am no stranger to locations associated with murder. During the course of my writing career, I've had the opportunity to spend time in such places as the Moore residence, the scene of Iowa's as-yet unsolved Villisca axe murders. I also spent some time in residence at Fox Hollow Farm, Indiana, the former home of alleged serial killer Herb Baumeister, who is also known as the I-70 Strangler. The Moore House is a small wood-framed structure that has been restored to a close approximation of its condition circa the early 1900s. On the night of June 10, 1912, a killer, or killers, depending on which theory you believe, either broke into the house or was lying in wait inside the attic when the Moores returned from spending the evening at church. All 6 members of the family, 2 adults and 4 children, were murdered in their beds with an axe taken from the barn. Also killed were the 2 Stillinger sisters, friends of the Moore children, who had accompanied them home from church for a sleepover. Stepping inside the house more than a century later, the faces of the victims look down on the visitor from framed photographs hanging on the walls of the rooms in which they died. In the master bedroom at the top of the stairs, one can still see gouges in the ceiling made by the axe head during its backswing. I'm not a particularly sensitive man, but even I had to admit that the house has an atmosphere that might best be described as either heavy or oppressive. Standing in the rooms in which they died, one cannot help but feel deeply connected with the Moores and the Stillingers, even after so many years have passed. Located in Carmel, Indiana, Fox Hollow Farm is a larger, more modern estate, the centerpiece of which is a grand mock Tudor house. In the basement is a swimming pool in which thrift store owner Herb Baumeister is said to have murdered an undetermined, though there were at least 11, number of men, based upon the number of bones and fragments that were found scattered around the grounds of the estate. After picking them up at a gay bar, Baumeister liked to drug his victims, invite them to swim in the pool, and then engage them in bouts of mutual autoerotic asphyxiation, the sexual practice of strangulation in an effort to enhance the potency of orgasm. In Herb's case, he simply refused to stop strangling when he should have, and kept applying pressure until they were dead. The bodies were then disposed of in the woods directly behind them.